NFL Network is reporting several Dallas Cowboys players, including Ezekiel Elliott, tested positive for COVID-19. CBS 11 Sports reached out to the Cowboys for comment. They say, quote, due to federal and local privacy laws, we are unable to provide information regarding the personal health of any of our employees.
So you just heard recent headlines where Ezekiel Elliott has coronavirus. This is kind of funny because this is the first time we're hearing about coronavirus in a couple weeks, and it kind of reminds you that we are still in the midst of a global pandemic when the biggest athletes with the most resources are still getting this. So, John, what are your thoughts?
I mean, I'm just a little bit unsure about how this is going to affect the league going forward because we got, a little bit less than 3 months now until the season is scheduled to start. The recovery time for coronavirus is, a few weeks. So, will this really affect the league? Are we going to start seeing more players get it?
There have been reports that he was not training in the Cowboys facility recently. On to your point, John, so he probably hasn't shared it with the rest of his team. Drew, what do you think?
Well, I seem to remember a certain Dak Prescott and Ezekiel Elliott throwing a party about a month ago with the rest of the Cowboys players, if you guys saw this. So, but it was a month ago, so you have to think that it's probably not
the cause.
It's probably not transmitted. It probably wasn't transmitted there, I guess.
It's a little bit
longer. But, because it was so long ago. But, also, if they had a party, who's to say that they haven't been seeing each other and hanging out and training? I think you're going to see a problem in all the leagues. I think you still really haven't seen any solution found for when athletes get diagnosed with coronavirus and they test positive for it. Are they going to have to sit out for 2 weeks? Because that is a huge deal.
Drew, on to your point, I think it's going to be treated as almost a DL, or maybe you'll have an IR in football, whatever the terminology they use for it is. I think you're just going to have an expanded area where you can put players for a couple weeks as they're recovering from corona, because you obviously can't have them coming into your facilities.
Of course, I like that, but what I'm saying is, also the NFL, first of all, you'll be missing 2 games. That's a significant portion of the season.
Do you get paid for those?
Do you get paid for those games? That's one thing, which, I feel like it's only fair that you do. But also, the other thing I'm thinking about is, what about with the NBA, potentially? And if they're coming back, they have series going on. That whole series is done in 2 weeks. So what if LeBron goes down for a series or something like that? You're looking at a major, major issue right there.
John, do you think the players should get paid if they're out for corona?
Yeah, I think they do need to be paid. Honestly, they deserve that. Just like anybody else who's injured in any other sport, they still get paid for the games that they miss, right?
Yeah, of course, John. You still get paid every time you get injured, which is what I'm saying is that it is the same thing, coronavirus. But then to add on to Lucas's point, which is an interesting wrinkle, if they add a coronavirus disabled list, let's say, then they could potentially have all new rules for that coronavirus list where your pay is either docked down or completely taken away.
For me personally, it comes down to a sport-by-sport basis. You have sports like the NFL where players have in their contract if they get injured and different stipulations for not getting paid. So I think that sport can handle cutting pays, salaries on the coronavirus completely different than other sports. Furthermore, they can just cut a player at any time who has coronavirus if they're not deemed a valuable asset to their team. So I think the NFL is completely different from a sport where the MLB, where they could be playing 50 games and a player goes out for a week and he misses 2 or 3 games. It's not worth cutting him. You should be paying him. When MLB players get injured, they still get paid. Their contracts are guaranteed. I think it's a tricky situation because you have guys at the bottom of the roster, whether it's the 53rd man on a 53 NFL team roster or the 39th man on a 40-team MLB roster, where if they get corona, it's almost more beneficial to the team to cut that player instead of paying them for 2 weeks and bring in another player who can be on the field right away.
Especially in the NFL, you do see that a lot. Whenever backup players or whatever, they get especially with running backs, you see if their hamstring tightens up, they'll be on the street by next week. That's just the way it goes. I mean, I don't see teams. Or what about like kickers? If your kicker gets coronavirus, are you really going to be paying
Your
them
long
for
snapper?
figures? Yeah, exactly.
I want to touch on a point Drew made earlier, which kind of struck me and has just been settling a little bit about what happens if LeBron James or another player of his magnitude gets corona mid-season, mid-playoff series, whatever it may be. Do you continue the series? How do you
What about
evaluate?
Giannis?
Where's the fairness?
I don't know, John. You got anything?
Drew, I personally think that just has to ruin. That would kind of ruin it, don't you think?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, then there would be legitimate claims for the asterisks next to the championship.
I was joking with somebody that their biggest free agent acquisition is Carlos Beltran. I know how it works, he's helping a lot. They're paying attention to details, and we have to clean our details.
So Drew and John, you just heard Alex Cora talking after the Red Sox played the Yankees a while back. And he mentioned how Carlos Beltran was a pretty big acquisition in the front office. And they had a little history together on the Astros. And he was saying that, maybe the Red Sox going forward are going to have to change some things up. So, to me at least, there was some pretty clear knowledge that both of these teams knew that there was something a little fishy going on. Drew, what are your thoughts?
I mean, there's a lot of talk about details. Details. I wonder what these details could be. I mean, we all knew it was happening. But yeah, no, it's funny to see because obviously Cora and Beltran were there in Houston together during the 2017 debacle that happened. And it is known that Beltran and Cora were both kind of guys who started it. They played very important roles in the cheating scandal, and then both obviously went to organizations that have now been wrapped up in some sign stealing scandals. And this one was covered up, apparently.
Yeah, Drew, so you kind of hinted a little bit about that, but can you go on a little more about the cover-up with the Yankees and the cheating that was announced?
So it just came out that there was a letter that the Yankees and MLB both wanted sealed from an investigation in 2017. And the 2017 investigation, what they released most of the letter, and they pretty much said that the Yankees did not do anything sign-stealing wise, like anything really bad. All that they did was, like, there was some mess-ups with, like, they were calling the media room or little things like that, where it was like, I mean, you shouldn't have done that, but we can't really punish you. But now it's been released. The judge just said that the letter or whatever, after he went through it, he said that letter, that what they released is not at all, like, it doesn't at all show what the investigation actually found, and that the whole letter has to be released. And so the MLB and the Yankees are both trying to keep it under wraps. Everyone's kind of like, all right, why don't you just release it if it's not that big of a deal, if it wasn't sign stealing?
Drew, that's like a really good point you make. Can you talk a little bit about like the Yankees fans that were going off at the Astros like back in 2017 when this cheating scandal broke?
So now the Astros fans are kind of getting their revenge, and the Astros players as well, because they've been getting like absolutely pooped on by Yankees fans for months and months and months over this cheating scandal. And now finally it's broken that the Yankees were cheating too at the exact same time in the exact same series. So the Yankees in that series, when they were playing in Houston, for the 4 games they played in Houston, they scored 3 total runs. In the 3 games they played in New York, they scored 19 runs.
They sound innocent.
Yeah. And then the Dodgers, of course, all their fans are kind of sitting over in the corner like, all right, what the hell? Like, when do we get our World Series trophy? Like, now the Yankees don't have a claim to it. But then also, like, the Astros fans and the Astros players going off at Yankees supporters and whatnot, it's like, really? Like, you're really about to insult this team, whatever, call them cheaters and whatnot after You guys just did the exact same thing in the exact same series and won a championship off of it. And also, it makes all the Astros' apologies look like absolute crap. Like, they're meaningless now. Because now they're like, oh, the Yankees, they cheated too, so now we're scot-free. This is why we shouldn't have gotten punished. Like, no. Everyone should be getting punished.
I can't believe I'm about to say it, but I'm going to say it. This is the first time in my life where I wish Roger Goodell was here.
I'll start with you. What is your reaction to what Kyrie and Dwight Howard and several other NBA players have said, suggesting that they should not return and resume the season?
I completely disagree with them, and I think they sound foolish. Let's get this out of the way right now. I've been waiting to talk about this, and I can't wait to get into this more heavily on First Take. I respect the fact that obviously everything's going on. You can't be a black man and not respect what we're seeing, particularly from these young warriors out here taking to the streets and making sure that they do everything that they can to raise awareness to what's going on and bring attention to it. But the real work is going to be done by other people within the legal profession and beyond after the awareness is brought to their attention and you buffer them with the level of support monetarily and otherwise that they may require.
So in our last podcast, Kyrie Irving was worried about the NBA resuming because he wasn't going to be allowed to go to Orlando even though he was injured. A couple days later, now he doesn't want them to resume at all?
He doesn't want anyone going to Orlando. If Kyrie can't have fun, no one can have fun.
What is going through this dude's mind?
I mean, obviously, there's a lot of tension going on in about racial injustice in the country right now. But I think,
Was there not on Thursday when we dropped this podcast?
yeah, I know, right? But
Dude, Kyrie,
no, I
dude,
think
he's so bipolar.
I think it is. I think, despite the fact that NBA basketball will be going on, I don't think it will be as much of a distraction as Kyrie is afraid of, because I think that is more of a platform that he can directly get to speak out against all the injustice that's been going on.
Yeah, John. Like I see exactly what he's saying and where the sentiment is coming from, but I don't think that like a distraction that historically has been mostly like black players and a lot of black culture and pride and all of that in the NBA. I don't see why shutting that down would be better than having games and having that platform where everybody who wants to watch sports in the world is watching you. So you have this huge platform to put your message across and to say what you want to say. And I think that that's something that you shouldn't really take for granted, which is almost what it seems like Kyrie is kind of doing with it.
Think about the after-game press, Drew. Like, I mean, you're going to have all this time post-games to be able to address a lot of the matters that you want to speak. That's going to be a perfect time, even if you don't do anything else on the court. Even if you don't wear an I Can't Breathe shirt, something like that.
And I think he's also probably worried about the media potentially. I mean, because I just had this thought right now, that the media, if at the post-game press conferences and stuff, if the media's stories and whatnot are more about basketball and they're not getting the story out about the point that they're trying to get across, then I can see what he's worried about. But I mean, I just don't see that happening. Lucas, you got anything?
Yeah, on to both of your points. I agree with you both, Drew and John. I think that the platform of playing games in front of millions of fans is bigger than the platform they have now as an NBA player who isn't playing basketball. You get tons of viewers. For me, it comes down to an issue of whether Kyrie Irving looked at this and was like, oh, so I can't go there. It's going to be a huge deal. All of these NBA players are going to get to speak their mind, and because I'm injured and I can't go there, I won't be a huge deal. I won't be the center of attention. I won't be able to have these post-game press conferences in front of all these people. Is there any selfish aspect to that, or am I just like going off a bender here?
I mean, I want to say that you're going off a bender because I obviously don't want to assume that of anybody, but this is Kyrie that we're talking about. I mean, if there's anybody whose ego would be big enough to do something like that, where it's like, if I can't make my statement, then no one's allowed to make their statement, then it would be Kyrie.
And that's more counterproductive.
That's a bold claim, though. I think.
Dude, I don't know, man.
I think it's safe to say that this is just his reaction to all the injustice going on. I don't think it's like.
John, I completely disagree. In 3 days, he changed his mind completely about wanting to go to Orlando, and
he went from wanting to go down there, even though he's injured, and not play, even though also he's supposedly close enough to being healthy to play. And now he's not allowed to go because he's injured, and all of a sudden now he doesn't want anyone to go. It's like, that's why I want to say that, like, that's not true, and, like,
The skeptic in me is wanting to believe that.
I think on to both of your points, Drew and John, it's more about because we know who Kyrie is. If this was a different player raising these concerns, we would probably feel differently. It comes down to the point of, does Kyrie care more about basketball or his personal goals aside from basketball? And I think time and time again, he's shown that he cares more about his personal goals. And this isn't wrong to care about your personal goals in a situation like this.
And let me really quickly say that by personal goals, of course, you don't mean the movement's goals and whatnot. Just his ability to say his his whatever he wants to
exactly,
say.
Dude. Yeah. Thank you for that, very important clarification. This has nothing to do with the movement. This is Kyrie as a human and what we've observed over and over and over again.
It's the team versus Kyrie.
In the NFC, Eagles win the division. 2 games over the Dallas Cowboys at 8-8.
So you just heard Colin Cowherd, who thinks the Eagles are going to win their division. Continuing on with our predictions for the NFC East, the Eagles open up Week 1 at the Washington Redskins. Drew?
That is a win.
John?
That's a win.
Win!
1-0.
Home against the Rams.
That's another win.
That's a win.
Win.
2-0.
Home against the Bengals.
Win.
3-0.
Win.
Hot start.
At the 49ers.
That's where I got to give them my first loss.
Yeah, that's a loss.
That's a win.
3-1.
At the Pittsburgh Steelers.
That's a win.
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 4-1.
Home against the Baltimore Ravens.
That's a surprising victory for the Eagles.
It's a loss.
Loss.
All right, 4-2.
Home against the New York Giants.
Win.
That's a win.
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 5-2.
Home against the Dallas Cowboys.
That's another win.
That's a win.
Win.
6-2.
Coming out of the bye at the New York Giants.
That's a loss.
It's a win.
Win.
7-2.
At the Cleveland Browns.
That's a big win.
It's a win.
Win.
8-2.
Home against the Seattle Seahawks.
They're taking it. That's a win.
That's a loss.
That's a loss.
8-3.
Russell's gonna win that on the road. You know that.
Dude,
You know that.
No, Carson's about to have an MVP season.
All right.
At the Green Bay Packers.
That is a win.
That's a loss.
That's a win.
9-3.
Home against the New Orleans Saints.
That is a loss.
That's a win.
That's a win. It's going to be snowy.
10-3.
At the Arizona Cardinals.
That's a loss.
That's a win.
Sneaky loss.
10-4.
At the Dallas Cowboys.
That is a loss.
Loss.
10-5.
Finishing up the season, home against the Redskins.
Gotta give them a win.
Yeah, big dub.
Win.
11-5. Final record for the Eagles.
So you got some idea of how to run an organization. Joe Judge has no idea how to run one.
So Skip Bayless clearly doesn't like the Giants hire. Moving on to their schedule, they open up Week 1 home against the Steelers. Drew?
That's a Week 1 loss.
John?
Loss.
0-1.
At the Bears.
That's another loss.
I'm gonna give them a dub.
Loss.
0-2.
Home against the 49ers.
That is a loss.
Blowout.
Loss.
0-3.
At the Rams.
That's a surprising win.
Loss.
0-4.
At the Dallas Cowboys.
That's a loss.
That's a loss.
0-5.
The battle of 0-5 teams. Home against the Redskins.
I have to give them 0-6.
Yeah, 0-6.
It's a loss.
Alright, 0-6.
At the Philadelphia Eagles.
That's a loss.
Loss.
0-7.
Home against the Tampa Bay Buccaneers on Monday Night Football.
That is a loss to Tom Brady.
Dub.
Win. Fuck Tom Brady. At the Washington Redskins.
That's a loss.
That's a loss.
That's a win.
1-8.
Home against the Philadelphia Eagles.
That is a win.
Loss.
1-9.
Please make their only win against Tom Brady. At the Cincinnati Bengals.
That is a win.
Win.
2-9.
Fuck you guys. At the Seattle Seahawks.
Loss.
2-10. Home against the Arizona Cardinals.
It's a win.
It's a big win.
It's a loss.
2-11.
Home against the Browns.
That's a loss.
That's a win.
That's a win.
Really? Alright. 3-11.
At the Baltimore Ravens.
That is a loss. 3-12.
Home against the Dallas Cowboys to finish
loss.
up the season.
That's a loss.
It's a loss.
Alright, 3-13 season for the Giants.
So, today we welcome PK Messervy to the HangTime Headlines podcast. He is finishing up his gap year as he prepares to play baseball at Harvard next year. PK, thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me.
So, how have you been spending your gap year?
Yeah, so the majority of it's probably been spent in the gym. I've been fortunate enough to be able to go to Cressy Sports Farms, which is a gym near me, probably 5 times a week for the past 6 months or so. Other than that, I have a hitting coach and a pitching coach that I've been working with on a weekly basis. And I was supposed to be the assistant coach for my high school team, but Corona kind of ended the season, so I wasn't really able to do that. But other than that, just some reading, writing, just trying to stay ready for classes.
How do you think that taking this gap year is going to affect your play?
So, I mean, essentially, this gap year for me, being like going to the Ivy League, is kind of like a red shirt, and for other leagues. And so, essentially, it's just like an extra year for me to just get bigger, stronger, more mature mentally, physically. And I think that should translate really well to my play. I should honestly be better in just about every aspect of the game.
And PK, just real quickly, do you know what position you're going to be playing at Harvard? Are you going to be pitching or outfield?
Yeah, so as of now, they have me kind of coming in as a two-way. So essentially, I'll be playing outfield and pitching. We'll see how that goes. Essentially, any way I can help the team, I'm happy to do. But as of right now, I'm going to be playing outfield and pitching.
That's awesome.
I got an extra question for you too, PK. As you're kind of coming towards the end of your gap year, are you glad you took it? Would you recommend it to other players? What are your just overall thoughts on it?
Yeah, honestly, it's probably been one of the best choices I've made in my life. It's really just given me time to be able to spend more time with my family, which is something I was really wanting to be able to do. But, all the stuff from a baseball standpoint has been awesome for me. But on top of that, I feel like for people kind of going into college for the first time, it might be a little overwhelming. There's a whole social scene and, classes and all that stuff. So having an extra year to just be able to visit a few of my friends at college and see how it's like, and just kind of have that under my belt to come in with a little bit more knowledge, I feel like is been so beneficial.
So how did you decide Harvard was the right school for you?
Yeah, so Harvard's essentially always been my dream school, really. And so around my freshman year, I first went to a baseball camp there with the coaches, and kind of got on their radar, and stayed intact with them for the next few years. And they came to some of my games, and I was just kind of in constant communication with them. And it was just a fit academically, athletically. I love the coaching staff. And so it's pretty near my home too, so it's just a good fit all around for me.
What are some personal goals for the 2021 season?
Yeah, so really just coming in and trying to make an impact any way I can. As a freshman, I know that there are guys on the team that have been there for longer than me, and might have a little bit more experience. So, if there's anything I can do to help the team, obviously I'm going to be working as hard as I can to try and, get a starting spot on the team. But really, however they want to use me, I'm just trying to be versatile, trying to be able to hit well if they want me to hit, trying to be able to go and play the field well if that's what they want me to do, or if they want me to come in and relief and throw some innings, to be able to do that effectively. Really just try and stay as broad as I can in terms of what I'm able to do and just help the team however I can.
What are some team goals for the 2021 season?
Yeah, so, in case anyone didn't know, we are still the reigning Ivy League champions. And as this past season was canceled, the season before, we were able to win the Ivy League championship and go to a regional, which was a really cool experience for the guys. So, winning another Ivy League championship, got into a regional, making a run, kind of the same as usual.
Can you talk about meeting your future teammates before you play with them?
Yeah, so I was able to go on a visit with a few of my teammates in November, I think it was, and was able to spend a night there on campus. And it was honestly one of my favorite nights of my life. It was so cool to be able to be on campus with the guys, and I met almost the entire team, which was really cool. And they were all just really kind of laid back, down to earth guys. I don't know about you guys, but for me, meeting Harvard students, I was like, oh my gosh, these guys go to Harvard, it must be so smart. They must, there's kind of a stereotype that you can almost think of when you think of Harvard kids. But when I went there and met these kids, they were just so down to earth, cool guys that were just super nice and welcoming, and we're just really excited to be able to play with me. So it was really cool.
Who do you try to model your game after, if anybody?
Yeah, so being from Boston, recently Mookie Betts has been someone I've really looked up to. I primarily play outfield. He's an outfielder. And I feel you can't really look up to someone better than Mookie Betts. I mean, he's a 5-tool guy. He plays outfield like I do. He's about my size, 6 feet, 185-ish. So he's just a great fit in terms of what I aspire to be. He's such an athlete in the box when he's swinging. So I watch a lot of his tape to try and model my game after.
So what aspect of your game do you think is best, and where do you most want to improve?
In terms of what I think is best, probably fielding. I feel I've always just naturally kind of had a gift with being able to play in the field. I feel you can stick me out there with just about anyone in the country and I can hold my own. So I would say fielding's probably my best. In terms of what I want to improve on the most, obviously in all areas of the game I can improve. But in terms of hitting, I feel that's one of the most important aspects of the game. If you hit, you don't sit. So I'm trying to just work on my swing and really just be able to rake.
PK, don't act like you were the best defensive fielder on the high school team. Everyone knows Freddie held that trophy. He had a cannon, unlike anyone else. So, who is the best player that you've ever played with?
Yeah, well, obviously, besides you guys, probably Patrick or Mary. I played with him just about up until middle school. And I think he's an outfielder right now. I think in his second year in the Cardinals organization. He was drafted out of high school.
Dude, I remember this kid. He was on the Rockies in Little League, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember. He was a couple years younger than me though, so I was on my way out of Little League as he was headed in to the National League. But I do remember that name.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much for joining us, PK. It was awesome. You're a stand-up guy. Big things coming at Harvard next year.
Very awesome. Thank you.
Good talking to you.
Take care, bro.
See you too.
Ballin' crazy with the hang time.